It's not solved yet, my problem, my creative block, but I do feel a little bit better since I started my quest last week because sharing really helps. I am very lucky to be surrounded by a community of supportive artists in Sketchbook Skool and on social media and on my blog. I got so many comments from students and from people online, and that is really, really encouraging. I'm not done yet. I am still asking tips and help from people around me. So later today, when he wakes up in New York City, 6 hours difference, I will talk to Gregory, who is my business partner in Sketchbook Skool. He's the co-founder of Sketchbook Skool. We're pals too, and he is a creativity guru. So who else to turn to for tips? So I am in a rut. I still have my art habit, so I have that creative habit. I will make my drawings every day. I'm just not so excited about it, and I don't feel the flow that I usually do feel once I start drawing, even if I don't really have any ideas about what I want to draw, or and it does help to pick up like a different kind of art tool, but it really depends on the art tool, because it can also be really disappointing and then it's really getting worse. So I think that's the main problem, that I don't feel that flow and that I'm sort of afraid that I can't find it back. Do you recognize that feeling at all? Did you ever encounter a creative rut or a block, maybe a writer's block even?
Yes, of course, everybody does. I think creativity is about a few different things, right? So the need to create, and like one of the reasons to create is to solve a problem. Sometimes you have to create an artificial problem. Creating a problem is like, there has to be a reason to create. In other words, just doing it in a vacuum is like being in a white room with a white piece of paper and a white pencil, and there's just no, it's just like you're doing it because you've been told that that's your job and that's what you're supposed to be doing. So I think if you can think of a problem to solve, that can guide what you're doing. So like one problem to solve can be, you're going on a trip and you want to document your trip. And so every day when you get up, you're going to go out, you're going to have experiences, and you're going to turn those into drawings and pages in your sketchbook. But if you're sitting around at home all the time and you're going back and forth from your house to your studio, and it's just like the same old thing, there's no problem to solve there. It's like you're not responding to your environment, and the environment is kind of just disappearing because it's just, you've seen it a million times before. So you're literally in a rut. You're traveling back and forth in a rut, back and forth to school, or back and forth to work, or back and forth to whatever. So one option is to say to yourself, well, I'm going to try and like get out of that physical rut by like going every day, setting myself a task. So every day at lunchtime, I'm going to have an experience and I'm going to record that. Or I'm going to set myself a project, and that project is going to be, I'm going to go and interview people on the street and do their portraits and write stories about them. I think it's setting yourself a problem, setting yourself a challenge, setting yourself an assignment, and that gives you a framework to start making stuff on it. And then in the process of doing that, you start thinking of like, what are the best ways to do this? Like, what's the best medium to do this? What's the best language to use? What's the best size paper to work on? All those kinds of things come out of what the problem is. But if you don't have that, then it's like it's like an oyster needs a grain of sand in order to make a pearl. You don't have a grain of sand right now. So, your life is too set. So I think you have to shake things up. So, and I think you have to get back really to thinking about what's the reason that you do this at all? What's the purpose for doing it? And I think that it's easy for people like you and me who our jobs have become our art. And we know that there's people out there who are waiting to see what we're doing. So there's like this audience out there, and that gives you the pressure and the feeling like, oh my God, I've got to do something. But there's no incentive. You have nothing particular that you're telling them. You have nothing particular that you're illustrating. So it's just, I think illustrating is a good point. It's like if somebody said to you, all right, I need a bunch of illustrations. And you were like, okay, what's the story they're illustrating? What's the book they're illustrating? You don't have that. So I think you have to go out and kind of make it. And what happens is once you start making it, you may not stick to it, but it gets the engine turning. It gets, so it doesn't have to be a huge project that will take over your life. It just has to be some small thing that just starts things going. I mean, another solution I think is also another way of looking at creativity. Creativity is rarely about creating something completely new out of nothing. It's usually about taking two things and combining them in a new and different way. You're taking stuff that's already or exists, but you're making something, a new combination, and that's the creation, that's the spark. It can help to go and find inspiration from stuff that other people have done. So like the last few days I've seen a lot of art. Like this past weekend I went to Brooklyn. They have, there's an area called Gowanus, and there's a lot of artists who have studios there, and every year they have a thing called Open Studio Day, and you go there and you can wander around and you can see all these different studios and you can see all the different work they do. And it's like hundreds and hundreds of artists there. And so I went and I wandered around. I saw a lot of crap, a lot of really bad art. I saw a lot of really amazing studios too. Some people who were doing like these huge, really detailed drawings that were turned into screen prints. And I thought, like, that's really cool. Like, I've been really thinking about screen prints. I always think about it, but I never quite think of what to do. And this was interesting. And they had done a whole series. It was about subways, and it was people on subways, and it was also like the architecture of subways. And it was just like several things I hadn't really thought about before. So that was interesting. And then also I had gone to the Jewish Museum uptown, and they had a John Singer Sargent portrait that he had done of this woman and her two children. But he had done it, I don't know where he was, but it looked like he was above them looking down. They were looking up at him. And this is a painting that was done in like 1901. It was really photographic. It felt almost like a selfie. And again, it was like really distorted by the angles. So his technique is always really beautiful, but the angle was just interesting. I thought, again, it's photographic perspective. So again, I think photography, drawings, portraiture, kind of those combinations just got me sort of excited.
The excitement, how do you actually take it with you in your own art? Are there like ideas you pick from? Or is it just, do you feel like your mindset is different because you look at ideas from a totally different mind? How do you take it? How do you use it?
I think to me, I'm usually not interested in necessarily doing what the person did. But what I keep feeling when I see people who excite me is, oh, you're allowed to do that. Oh, you can do that. Oh, I never thought of it that way. And so I think it's that feeling of like unblocking, of freedom, of saying, oh, there's lots and lots of things that I could do. That is the thing I really take away from it. And so I take pictures on my phone of the stuff that inspired me, again, so that then later on I can look at it and remember that feeling. Because the feeling to me is the most important thing, which is like this sense of possibility and that I'm allowed to do something. So that gets you over the hump because you go, oh, I'm excited to do something. I'm excited to try something. And that excitement will take me to some direction that may have absolutely nothing to do with what that person did that I saw. But it's that permission that they give me that I think is the real block breaker.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I always keep forgetting how important it is and how exciting it can be to look at other people's art. So I don't do it that often, even though I'm in Amsterdam. There's like many museums and galleries here, and I still don't just cycle by and drop in. The two tips you give me is like to solve my problem, create a problem to solve. So not the problem I am in a rut, but actually just a creative problem just to draw. And the other tip is look at other people's work and get excited by that. So that gives you a push into a different direction, right?
The first problem you can solve is to document the fact that you're in a rut. What is going on in your mind? Who did you go and talk to? Should you make a comic book out of that? Should it be, a series of drawings of the voices in your head? Use that as an inspiration and then go from that to other places. But I think in both sort of suggestions I'm giving you are about getting out of your head. That's the problem with the rut is you get into thinking, you're like, I can't think of anything, I can't think of anything, I can't think of anything. And if you say, I'm going to look for a problem that's bigger than me, I'm going to look for inspiration from the outside world, I'm going to look for a problem to solve, it gets you out of that cycle of thinking.
Yeah, you need to let go, and that's the hardest thing.
Yeah, because you've done it before. It's not like you don't know how to do it. You've done it before. So it's a matter of like getting back to that place. But the more pressure, it's like trying to, if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're lying there trying to fall back asleep, you're like, I gotta get to sleep, I gotta get to sleep. The more you think about that, the worse it gets. So I think similarly with a rut, it's like you gotta just start doing something. And so the question is like, what's going to inspire you to do it? And I think solving a problem is a really good way to start because then you have some obligation, you have some reason to do it. But also don't make it into a big thing. Make it into a small thing. Say today I'm going to do this one thing, one day at a time. I'm going to make this one thing. And then also maybe don't share it. Maybe don't make a big deal out of that because then while you're doing it, you're thinking about the response people are going to get.
Right, and then you feel obligated to actually finish it as well. Maybe you don't want to finish it. Maybe it's just a beginning of something, and that's enough. So that's a good one.
Good. Well, I hope you start making something and don't show it to me.
I won't.
Good, thanks. I can't wait to not see it.